All right, Lydia Houston, this mic is all yours, my friend.
Thank you, Lynn. I am so happy to be here. I will continue reading from Living A Course in Miracles by Dr. John Mundy. Uh, Incredible teacher, such an incredible teacher. And our last, during our last reading, I began chapter. Oh, that's a long chapter. Okay. Chapter 18, A Course in Mind Training. And we stopped on section doesn't have a number, but we stopped on the section regarding how forgiveness is a daily practice. And just to recap, the lessons you have taught yourself have been so overlearned and fixed, they rise like heavy curtains to obscure the simple and the obvious. And that's a theme that recurs in the course because the course is simple. It's not easy to do, but the principles are simple. So, overlearning. There is a theory in education called overlearning. Repeat any activity over and over again, and it will be encoded in the brain. Most everyone has overlearned how to tie their shoes. Men overlearn how to tie ties. When studying a foreign language, we learn a new word, but then we review it again and again. In this way, it is less likely that we will forget it. In the same way with music, I practice a piece until I know it, and then I practice it again. We have so overlearned the lessons of the ego that it should not surprise us to hear that it's going to take some discipline to learn a wholly new habit. Though we know that projection makes perception, we've been engaging in the process of judgment so much we must repeatedly catch ourselves and stop it. Catch ourselves and stop it. Catch ourselves and stop it. Up to the point where we no longer have to catch ourselves. We just don't go there. Though there is no requirement to do so, some students of the course, once they complete the workbook, do it over again. Reading the text again, the text becomes increasingly clear because we are now able to hear it at a yet deeper level. Likewise, overlearning means we don't forget. As we begin to live the course, as we get better at it, we literally develop the habit of miracle mindedness. Chapter 19, Word Fasting, the Spiritual Diet, Observing and Correcting Our Thoughts. And so we start our journey beyond words by concentrating first on what impedes your progress still. A Course in Miracles, Workbook Lesson 181. Let's review briefly. Projection makes perception. Understanding this three-word sentence is crucial in our understanding the course. I project the world as quote unquote real, not realizing that I am an image maker. I dream a dream. Every word is a projection within the dream. Everything changes when we change the way we see. First, I must remember that I have a mind which can be changed. A miracle is a change of mind from mindlessness, misthought, wrong mindedness, or insanity to mindfulness, right mindedness, sanity, or reasonableness. The body acts wrongly only when it responds to misthought. We are trying to regain control of our minds and thus our misthoughts, so that being free of misthoughts, we can learn to think again, bring our minds back in line with the mind of God. God is love. God is life. Life is thought. God is mind. We are part of God. God's voice speaks to us all through the day. The body can act wrongly only when it is responding to misthought. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 2. Our minds are composed of bits of information called words. While words are symbols of symbols, they remain, along with sensations, feelings, and intuitions, a primary instrument in our learning. The Course is written in words. You are reading words, which convey ideas that can help us change our minds. Would you know how many times you merely thought you were right without ever realizing you were wrong? A Course in Miracles, Manual for Teachers. There is something in us which loves techniques, and the following are techniques: practical suggestions, a means of observing our thoughts and correcting them by becoming progressively more aware of language, and thus the misthought which produces the language. Everyone likes to be right, and the ego is more concerned with control than it is with sanity. The ego, however, keeps this motivation from our awareness. The following suggested exercise is simply a way of recognizing that what we say is an outward reflection of an inner condition which needs correction. Just as anger is a sure sign that our thinking is off course and we need a better way of seeing, so too becoming more aware of our language helps us see where and how we get stuck within an ego framework. From this vantage point, we might then choose once again. Remember, every choice you make establishes your own identity, as you will see it and believe it is. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 31. Sigmund Freud pointed out the importance of slips of tongue and jokes, which say a great deal about our unconscious. In like manner, we'll be looking at the following words in order to be more conscious of our own thinking patterns, so we might thereby see where we get stuck in ego thinking. We might then become more conscious of what we are doing and redirect our thinking away from the guidance of the ego. We think our judgments make us right. They are, however, just judgments. As each thought arises, observe. To whom does this thought occur? We are learning to question the value of the ego as a guide in life. Watch your mind carefully for any beliefs that hinder its accomplishment and step away from them. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 4. This technique, if employed, can enable a growing awareness of the level of insanity we have adopted. Through this practice, we can see what pushes our buttons. What do we do when we go on a diet? We cut out certain foods and we cut back on the amount of food, or both. To go on a monetary diet, we cut back on spending. Problems arise when we overdo, when we overspend, overeat, drink too much, or overplay the severity of a situation. The solution is to cut back, to cut out, to drop projective thinking, to say nothing. One simple way to observe projections is to watch the words that come out of your mouth. We can thus let go of the kind of thinking which keeps us from happiness. We cannot, however, change our thinking if we do not know that it is misguided. Sometimes a sin can be repeated over and over with obviously distressing results, but without the loss of its appeal. And suddenly, you change its status from a sin to a mistake. Now you will not repeat it. You will merely stop and let it go, unless the guilt remains. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 19. We set aside the old in order for the new to come to the fore. The snake sheds its skin so that a new skin can emerge from below. Our bodies dispel old cells to make way for new ones. In a similar way, having built up a number of defenses against the truth, we should not be surprised to find that as we become progressively miracle-minded, there is a setting aside of old habits and thoughts which no longer serve us. Alcohol makes certain folks obstinate, headstrong, and argumentative. Former alcoholics and drug addicts say that even within a few days after they stop drinking, they begin to experience increasing clarity of thought. They even find themselves wanting to be nice to others. As a member of AA once expressed it to me, it's nice to wake up in the morning instead of coming to in the morning. The more you approach the center of his thought system, the clearer the light becomes. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 11. Just as disease is a sign that something is wrong with the body, so is our distemper, the upsetting of a natural balance, a sign of a certain pollution or disease of the mind. We need, therefore, a mind cleaning. If we do not wash out the stone in the sand, how can we find the gold? Just as dropping smoking, drinking, or drugs means we've begun to purify our body, so dropping certain words from our language can be a valuable guide in helping us to clarify our thinking. It also helps us identify when we are having thoughts that need correction. I have often repented of having spoken. I have never repented of not having spoken. German mystic Henry Seuss. I think that's Seuss. Every word is a projection. According to You Are What You Say by Jan Donges, in the July-August 2009 issue of Scientific American Mind magazine, a wealth of psychological insights can be gained by looking at the words that come out of our mouths. Even the use of little words like pronouns. The frequency with which we use the word I, for example, says a great deal about us. Every word is a statement, a declaration, an announcement, a proclamation, an assertion coming out of the void, made in the world. The first cry of a baby coming out of the womb is a projection, a statement. The baby was so very warm and well nourished in the womb, and now there are bright lights and sounds and someone grabbing a hold of it. With words, we label, concretize, solidify, and make real. What is the first job given to Adam? He has to name things. That's from the Bible, Genesis chapter 2, verse 20, I guess. He begins by naming the animals. What is the first thing we learn in preschool? We learn words. What is the first thing we do in a high school biology class? We begin by labeling the names of the parts of a flower or a frog. The universe superimposed upon God is nothing but a name. Indian Vedantist Shankara. Naming creates duality. It distinguishes the things that are named from the things that are unnamed. Miracle-mindedness hears only one voice, the inner voice of reason or love. The inner voice of reason is, however, easily drowned out by the ego's voice of outrage. The words that come out of our mouths are obvious expressions of our inner thoughts and personalities. Word fasting. God offers only mercy. Your words should reflect only mercy, because that is what you have received and that is what you should give. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 3. Jesus in the Gospels says, "It is not what we put in our mouths that defile us. It's what comes out of the mouth that defiles us." A word fast is one way to catch the tricky ego at play. We may even avoid falling into clutches. Looking at the words which come out of our mouths is a good way to begin to become aware of the extent of our own shadows. 1. Watch for profanity and vulgarities. While watching a reality television show specifically designed for teenagers with Sarah, my then teenage daughter, we soon noticed that the language of the participants had to be frequently bleeped. To a damn thing to hell in obviously a projection. To damn a thing to hell is obviously a projection. I once took a friend to a church with me. After the Sunday morning message, we had a discussion. During the discussion, she kept talking about things which pissed her off. Why would we say shit? Why would I ever want to refer to someone else as an asshole? One day in the cafeteria at the college where I used to teach, I could not help but overhear the conversation about a group of students at the next table. They had but one effing adjective for everything they evaluated as good or bad. Okay, I've overheard that conversation too. So the gist of that is find a more civilized way of expressing yourself. Okay, number 2, watch for name calling. We may try to correct others by telling them off and making them feel guilty, thinking this will make them change. This process, rather than providing a cure, creates a sense of separation between ourselves and others, and it increases our sense of guilt. Our focus is on clearing up our own mistakes, not projecting onto others. As we do, we begin to affect the other in a very subtle, non-verbal way. It is helpful, therefore, to notice the use of name calling. Words like stupid, insane, ludicrous, ridiculous, idiotic, and absurd. These words are all highly projective and condemnatory. We would not want these words used in reference to ourselves. Why would we want to use them in reference to another who though perhaps wearing a disguise, is still one of our brothers, and therefore one with us. Would you condemn your brothers or free them? A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 11. Number 3, watch for the quote unquote dis word. During the years when I taught in Sing Sing prison, I noticed that one of the worst things a prisoner could have happened to him was to have another prisoner or guard diss him, to disrespect him. Hey, he dissed me, man. Everybody needs respect. Dis comes from the Latin word dis, meaning to render apart or asunder. We can only be disappointed if we have an appointment, an expectation, or anticipation about the way a situation is supposed to look. If it doesn't look that way, we get to be disappointed. A friend once gave me a little plaque with the innocent face of a Cocker Spaniel puppy on it, and under the picture was the caption, "Blessed are those who expect nothing, for they will not be disappointed." Only an ego can be disappointed. To tell a child that we are disappointed in them is to place a burden on them. Children need our encouragement, not our condemnation. To be diseased, we must first have been at ease. We can only be disillusioned if we are living with an illusion. We can only be disenchanted if we are first enchanted. Number 4, watch for counting on. I once gave a talk at a conference. It was one of those times when everything seemed to flow very well. I was told by the producers that it was being taped, which it was, and I would be given a copy. There were lots of unplanned good laughs during the talk, and I was looking forward to having a new recording. I waited for a couple of weeks, and not having received the CD, I called and was told that the recording did not work. I saw the response I was about to give before it came out, knowing it was coming from the ego. Oh, that's too bad. I was counting on that. Only an ego counts on things. Only an ego places expectations and anticipations on the world. I like that. Number 5, watch for disgusted, irked, and vulgar. Watch your mind for the temptations of the ego and do not be deceived by it. It offers you nothing. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 4. Watch for heavily judgmental words. Consider the word disgusted. It is a highly judgmental word. Who are we to be disgusted? On another occasion, a friend kept saying, "It irks the hell out of me." Disgusted, vulgar, and irked represent something which comes up from the gut, something which makes us sick. The choice to condemn takes our peace of mind away from us. Did you ever think that someone was rude or uncouth? Are things appalling, horrendous, inexcusable, or atrocious? Is it really, or is it our judgment about a thing keeping us from seeing? To take offense is to give offense. Watch for despicable. This is number 6. Despicable comes from di, meaning down, and spacere, to look on, as in denigrate. Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury of the United States and then Vice President of the United States, Aaron Burr, were longtime political rivals. In 1804, Hamilton was quoted in the Albany Register saying that he thought something Burr had done was despicable. Burr demanded an apology, and when it was not forthcoming, Burr challenged Hamilton to a duel. Wow. Things were pretty heated back then, weren't they? They dueled in Weehawken, New Jersey, and Aaron Burr killed Alexander Hamilton over the word despicable. I once heard an American historian say that he thought that of all the founding fathers, the one with the highest IQ was Alexander Hamilton. He devised the banking system that we use to this day. He had 60 people working in his department when others had only 5. He may have had a high IQ, but it seems a low EQ, emotional quotient. Just a word, a little whisper that you do not like, a circumstance that suits you not, or an event that you did not anticipate upsets your world and hurls it into chaos. Truth is not frail. Illusions leave it perfectly unmoved and undisturbed. But specialness is not the truth in you. It can be thrown off balance by anything. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 24. Number 7, watch for the words upset or offended. Upset and offended are indications of the loss of balance. To be upset, we must first have a setup. We set it up so we could be upset. The English word upset comes from the German aufsetzen, meaning to overturn or capsize, as we might lose our balance in a canoe. One translation for upset in Spanish is trastornado, meaning to have a tornado or twister. If we're upset, we're like Joe, goodness, what in the world is that name? Okay. I'm not familiar with this cartoon, but the cartoon character from Little Abner cartoon series who always walked around with a thunderstorm over the top of his head. If I can be hurt by anyone, then I am saying that someone else is a sinner and that person has power over me. They have the power to take away my peace of mind. In a place of inner balance, we cannot be upset. In a similar way, if we are off-ended, something pushes us off the end. Only an ego can be offended. Number 8, watch for being outraged or insulted. Outrage comes from the Anglo-French outrage, or outer or outer, like other. It's the other that's the problem. Outrage means we are raging out. The word outraged is frequently used on the evening news, as in the community is outraged by recent development at the local school. To be outraged, we must feel that either we or others have been injured or insulted. Insult comes from the Latin insultar, meaning to leap upon or assail. Could Jesus be insulted? If we think we have been wronged or insulted, it's a good time to stop, look, and listen. We cannot be insulted unless we think we can. Could any enlightened being be insulted? Good question. Does what I see make me outraged? Is there ever a time when we could be justifiably outraged? Is there ever a time when we could be justifiably outraged? No, never. Anyone can say all manner of evil against us, and it will have no effect on us if we know who we are in truth. Teach no one, he has hurt you. For if you do, you teach yourself that what is not of God has power over you. And I messed that up, so I will repeat it again. Teach no one, he has hurt you. For if you do, you teach yourself that what is not of God has power over you. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 14. Number 9, watch for bugged. And this is fun. Sometimes just a little word shows how we give our peace away. I was talking with an amazing man, a physics professor who loved to play with ideas. It was wonderful to see the way his mind worked. He would get so excited by the ideas he was playing with. He must have been a delight for his students. One of the phrases my friend used was, "What bugs me was," he had a bug in his mind, much as one might have a cold, an infection, or a virus. Why would anything bug us? The miracle-minded literally cannot be bugged. Watch your mind for the scraps of fear, or you will be unable to ask me to do so. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 4. 10. Watch for hate, fear, afraid, and fight. Do we really hate some of the things we say we hate? Notice the use of the phrase, "I hate it when that happens," or "I hate to have to say this, but..." One of my daughter's friends was talking about the way she hated her hair and how she hated the way she was dressed. Another friend said she hated New York City. Are we really afraid it might rain this afternoon? Are there really things in this world we must fight against? Remember, the ways of war are not the ways of peace. Are hate, fear, afraid, and fight really the words we want to use? Words to cut back, but not completely eliminate. Most of the above words can be completely eliminated from our vocabulary, just as we might completely cut candy, cookies, cake, and ice cream from our diet. Wow, I can't even imagine that. Anyway, the next group of words we'll probably have to use from time to time, though we can cut back on the frequency and be more conscious of the context in which they are used. The thing to notice is whether or not the words are used in an ego-laden and judgmental way. They may be words we need to use from time to time, but we don't have to use them so much. We're not completely cutting out these words. Here, we're just going on a more restricted diet, not a complete fast. Number 1, watch for them and they. Ooh, that's difficult. One morning, I drove a friend to the airport. He wanted to listen to a radio station which gave regular reports on traffic conditions. There was a political commentator making observations about the state of our world, along with the constant repetition of the words, they, them, them. Who are they? The truth is, there is no they. 2, watch for want, need, and have to have. Do we really need or have to have some of the things we may think we need? How much of life is governed by the tyranny of needs? While there are times when we may need to go to the grocery store or we may need to stop for gas, when I'm in my right mind, do I need for things to be different than what they are? Byron Katie, 1942 to present, has a book called I Need Your Love. Is that true? Wherever there is a need of this sort, there is an ego behind it. Love does not need anything. Need is an expression of the thought that something is missing. If I have no needs, I make no demands upon the world. At one with God, there is never a moment when we truly lack anything. The miracle-minded grow progressively away from needing, wanting, or having to have anything. Sudden awakenings are rare, but possible. One such description comes from Susan Siegel, author of Collision with the Infinite. A 27-year-old pregnant American woman, married to a French doctor, she was about to board a bus in Paris when I lifted my right foot to step into the bus and collided my head on with an invisible force that entered my awareness like a silently exploding stick of dynamite, blowing the door of my usual consciousness open and off its hinges. What I had previously called me was forcefully pushed out of its usual location inside me into a new location that was approximately a foot behind and to the left of my head. I was now behind my body, looking out at the world without using the body's eyes. A seasoned meditator, Susan could not figure out what had happened. She no longer had any wants or needs, cravings or desires. She found herself being an observer rather than a projector. She continued to live a normal life, but everything had changed. She started going to psychologists to find out what had happened, but no one could figure it out. She was eventually diagnosed with a dissociative personality disorder. Not having wants or needs meant she no longer had a personality. Finally, one of her therapists decided that she had experienced the disintegration of the ego, which some might equate with insanity. To a teacher of God, however, such an egoless state means that one has gained sanity rather than lost it. 3, watch for but. You said but. I've put my finger on the whole trouble. You're a but man. Don't say but. That little word but is the difference between success and failure. Sergeant Ernie Bilko in the Phil Silvers show. Okay, that's a show I never heard of. But moving along, but becomes negative when we use it to reserve whatever we say. When we make a positive statement, then follow it with the word but, we undo what we said in the first phrase. I love you, but you are a good kid, but this will probably not be perceived as a compliment. We can always tell when a but is coming up before it is said. If I say, it's probably none of my business, but it probably is none of my business. Instead of the word but, Put in a period and start a new sentence. Or substitute the word but for and. As a magazine editor, I sometimes have to tell folks that I liked what they wrote and I feel it needs more work. Sometimes we will need to say but. According to the study by Jan Donges, mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, but can also be used when we are trying to be honest. That is when we are trying not to overlook the details of a description, or we are trying to look at both sides of a situation. What we're watching out for is the use of but in a critical statement. Number 4, watch for phrases suggesting overextension. Many of these words relate directly to diet. For example, I'm stuffed, or I'm too full, or I overdid it, or I can't help myself, are all demonstrations of the lack of our own control, and again represent our being out of balance. Sometimes when folks do something inhumane, they excuse themselves by saying they are only human. Number 5, watch phrases suggestive of bodily or psychological response. He makes me sick. I can't stand it. He is a pain in the butt. It drives me crazy. Really? Are you being driven crazy? Is that where you want to go? Number 6, watch for weasel words. And I know exactly what he's talking about. I have made every effort to use words that are almost impossible to distort, but it is always possible to twist symbols around if you wish. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 3. Weasel words are twists on words and or words with double meanings. Weasel words are used to avoid a straightforward answer. They conceal the truth and are used to manipulate. We say the company is restructuring rather than saying people are being fired. The Pentagon speaks about collateral damage and friendly fire rather than killing people. Soldiers are taught to speak of those they are killing not as people, rather, they are to be called the enemy. Weasel words include generalizations like many people say and the alleged thief. Even the use of the word alleged implies that one is a thief. You can't push someone's buttons if they don't have any buttons to be pushed. Not only are we not to judge, we don't have to be upset if others judge us. This is a real sign of spiritual maturity. Jesus going to the cross because of others' judgments of him is an extreme example. He was willing to be crucified to show us that the projections being made upon him didn't matter. Sometimes we're tested big time. Expect nothing of others. And if love comes back our way, we can just enjoy it. Keep giving love away, even if it goes unacknowledged. Mo Chao, devise no words. Bodhidharma, 5th century BCE China, the founder of Zen Buddhism, says, devise no words. In China, they call this state of mind Mo Chao. When we are not projecting, Mo Chao, serene or silent, and Chao means awareness. It is a mirror-like quality that just reflects, just sees, just receives, just loves. Jesus, In the Gospels says, we should let all of our answers be yes or no. All else comes from evil. Watch carefully and see what is being said. Insofar as we live within the ego mind, we remain not entirely conscious of why we do what we do. It is possible to awaken from this darkness. A good place to start is to watch the words that come out of our mouths. Be careful of your thoughts, for your thoughts inspire your words. Be careful of your words, for your words precede your actions. Be careful of your actions, for your actions become your habits. Be careful of your habits, for your habits build your character. Be careful of your character, for your character decides your destiny. Chinese proverb. Your words should reflect only mercy, because that is what you have received, and that is what you should give. A Course in Miracles, textbook, chapter 3. And that ends that chapter, which was a really fun chapter. Next week, we will be reading chapter 20. There is nothing to forgive, or there is no future in the past. John Mundy, he is really just a very clever man, very witty. Well, my time is up, and as you know, I will be going to see my mom. We have been reading from Living A Course in Miracles by the incomparable John Mundy, and we will be continuing next week. Thank you so much. I had a great time.
Thank you so much, Lydia. And next week we'll be on time. I love this book too. All right, go have fun with your mom. I love you.
I love you, Lynn.